If you haven't joined us before, this is the Dreyer Drive podcast. This is a podcast all about siblings and the people, places, and pop culture that raised us. And in this week's episode, we'll talk a little bit about our unwarranted stress about visiting the DMV. We'll share some first date stories. We'll talk about how usually we deal with our problems by just sweating profusely. And then we'll talk about today's main topic, which is all about two brothers who, with the help of a friend, may or may not have escaped from Alcatraz. And then we'll wrap up this episode the way we wrap up every single episode with an unhinged text message from a family member. And this week, I'm that family member. I sent Jacqueline a text message about a dream that I had that involved her husband. And now, because I'm sure you're just dying to make it to that unhinged text message, let's jump into this week's episode. So I don't know what it is, and I know we've talked about this before, but Japan is so far in the future for some things and just so far behind. The amount of paperwork that I get every single week in the mail. Like, when was the last time you got a piece of mail that you had to take action on in the next 5 to 10 days?
Every piece of mail I take from the mailbox and I put it directly into the recycling bin. I don't open anything. I don't look at it. What is it for? Even if it's a bill, I know I have the bill on my online account. Like, why I wouldn't need to do anything with it. So I just put it directly in the recycling bin. I don't even want it in the house. Like, please, let's not bring that in here.
In Japan, they will show up at your house. They'll be like, I'm sorry, we sent you something 11 days and we haven't received a response. And they do this thing where, for example, I received a notice in the mail that was asking for an update on my work situation. So every time I go to renew my visa, I have to say, hey, here's the work that I'm doing, especially because I'm a sole proprietor. Like, I have my I am my business in Japan. I don't work for any company. So they always ask me to update this thing. Like, here are the activities that I do. And they want you to be specific. It's not just like, they don't want to hear just consultant, product designer. They don't want to see UX consultant, product manager. They don't want to see web developer. They don't want to see any of that stuff. They want, like, I log into my computer at this time. I use these programs to complete these tasks. So they sent this letter out that I have to complete. And then they start following up with phone calls to remind me that I need to fill out the piece of paper that they've sent. And they do that until they receive it back. It's so bizarre. Every week there's something that I need to take action on.
And you sent, like, through the mail, like you have to put it in a mailbox?
Some of the things you have to do out here, I'd like to think that after the decades of going between Canada and Japan, living out here earlier and now living here for 2 years, this time, that there would be things that I'm just used to, and I'm used to everything. It's not the case. There's so many things. You have to go and buy a $40 stamp and bring it to the visa office to prove that you've paid for this thing that they can now send in the mail. That's the level of stuff we're talking about. But then on the flip side of it, everything's on my phone. I can pay my tax bill by just scanning a barcode on this thing that comes through. I'm talking, it doesn't matter if it's $5 or $50,000, you can literally just pay with your phone, right? And then other times, like, can you please go to the post office and buy a $40 stamp and then drive it to our office to show it to us so we can put it on an envelope and send it back to you. And you're like, but can you just hand it to me right now? And I could go home with this thing that you were, but they're like,
For a while, I live in a small town. We have an equally small post office, and I got to know the postmaster guy. Is that what you call it? What is that?
You do now. That is definitely what they're called now.
No,
excuse me, postmaster. I would like to purchase.
He was the nicest man, but we got to know each other because I was constantly dropping off things that were either going to, for a while they were going to England or Canada or Japan. And so that's how he would just like, what are you sending? He would be so interested in, like, what I would be sending. It would be like a box of puzzles for Noah or like food for Jonathan in England or whatever. But he retired and I was gutted. Postmaster, no more.
Postmaster, no more. Also, I feel like that's also, like, not allowed. Of course, they need to know to a certain degree the contents, but when they start getting very specific, it's like, I'm setting a puzzle. What kind of puzzle? Princess puzzle? Which princesses?
Which princesses? Which one's your favorite? If you were a princess, what would you be?
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that stuff is, I'm in visa process mode right now because I have to renew my visa in Japan. So I'm just, and when one thing expires, everything expires because your bank account is counting down your visa status because you can't have a bank account in a country where you don't have a visa status, right? So you've got, if you have multiple bank accounts, they're sending you stuff in the mail, like, please complete this with a ball pen, stamp it and send it back. But you can't do that until you get your visa renewed, and then once you get that renewed, then you can renew your resident card, and then your resident card can renew your My Number card, and then that's the stuff you use to renew everything else. And it's just this ticking clock always out here, which I do and I do really well with that kind of stuff.
The other thing is so we're doing passports right now for everybody, and the only way to pay for a passport here is by personal check. And first of all, that means I have to find a checkbook, in just the depths somewhere in my home where I put one away. I have not yet found one. So I have to find a checkbook, and then you have to write it while you're there. And the amount of times I've renewed passports and forgotten that we needed to check, and then had to send Justin home to get a checkbook to then bring back to the passport office. And then the people who work at passport offices always act like you're the dumbest human alive for not knowing this thing, right? Like, they're like, why wouldn't you just have a checkbook on you at all times? And it's like, it's so frustrating. I want to cry every time we go there.
They're like, it says right here, handwritten checks or satchels of silver dollars only.
Just those bags, and it has to have like a dollar sign on it. And carry it in.
You have to arrive on horseback.
Truly ridiculous. It's every time I know what's coming up, we have to do it tomorrow, and I'm already just gearing up for first of all, being made to feel like I'm so stupid the entire process and getting everything wrong. Did I tell you about when I went and got my eyes tested? Have we talked about this for my driver's license?
No.
So I had to renew my driver's license. So when I do, what's it called? You know, when you do like 2 truths and a lie or whatever?
Yes.
One of my truths is always that I'm blind in one eye.
Hold on.
So
you realize that you said, what's it called? 2 truths and followed up with the correct title?
What's it called again? I haven't prepared for this at all. This little story that I want to tell. No, the truth. So, and I'm always thinking about like good facts for those. I'm like, ooh, that's a good one. But one of them that I always use is that I'm blind in one eye. When I was a kid, I was supposed to be eye patched, and I wasn't. And so because of that, I no longer see it.
Patch went to the cat. The patch went to the cat, and I had to do without.
They were like, we only have money for one patch, and sorry, Aaron already took it. So
Aaron's just cleaning her paws in the corner of one eye, just staring off to the side. Which, by the way, I'm just connecting the dots right now, is hilarious because you also, for like the first 8 years of your life, suffered from, I don't even know what to call it, but one of your eyes was looking in the completely different direction.
I was cross-eyed. Yes, I had as a kid a condition called amblyopia, and it's where one eye is much weaker than the other, and it wanders.
That's my favorite Outcast album. Amblyopia. Amblyopia. And so your eye kind of wanders around, it can't focus, and then eventually it's like your brain just shuts off the picture. It's like nothing's happened, like nothing good can come of this eye anymore. So it's actually a neurological condition. So I can't ever get like LASIK or anything. It's just like once it's done, it's done. You never see out of that eye again. So I have this condition. I can see light through it, but that's about it. So are you serious?
Yeah, 100%. So if I close
I don't know why I asked if you're serious. This sounds like a very serious. Are you serious?
This is the truth. This is not my life. This is my truth. So the only thing that really bothers me is that when you see a picture, you're seeing 2 offset right and offset left pictures that are combining to make one, right? So that means I only see anything offset left. So my depth perception is a little off. So, like the only time I really notice is like I'll bump into something or whatever, or when I'm parking a car. I have a hard time near curbs. And so I'm always afraid, though, that when they test my eyes at where you get the driver's license, that
DMV?
They're going to find out. The DMV. That they're going to find out. Like, somehow they're going to be like, you should never have a license. Who gave this to you? So, like, I go feeling like I'm doing something wrong. So as soon as I get that notice in the mail, it's like, oh, you need to come in and be tested and renew your driver's license. So I'm like, oh no, here it is. This is the time. And so I go in. It was because I was turning 40 and they needed to retest my eyes to renew. Here it's like the goggles, and they separate your eyes to check your what's it called? Peripheral. Yeah. And so she's like, okay, I've done all the paperwork. She's like, okay, if you'll just step up to the goggles or whatever. I step up and I'm like, here we go. And she does the left eye first. She's like, can you read the letters? I'm like, uh-huh. And I read the letters. And she's like, okay, now read the ones on the right. And it's just a black screen. I'm like, I'm like, the ones on the right? She's like, yeah, just the ones on the right. I'm like, I don't see anything on the right. She's like, you don't see anything on the right. And I'm like drenched in sweat. I'm like, I'm going to get my license taken away. The jig is up. And she's like, are you sure? And I'm like, no, I see everything in the left panel, but I don't see anything in the right panel. And she's like, and she was training. It was like her second day. And her trainer comes up. She's like, silly, you forgot to turn that panel on. And they're like, oh. And they turned the panel on and I could see it enough that I could see like the lights and the colors. So I got through. But it was the most terrifying experience of my life, truly.
And those ones, they're just testing, like, where do you see the light, right? Like the color.
Yeah, they're like flashing a light and they're like, can you see a light here? Do you see a letter over here? And they just never turned on the panel. And I thought that I could not see.
Now,
true, but
let it be stated for the record that I am not the creator of this test. Okay, let it be known that I'm not the creator of this test. I feel like there's probably a better test for vision as it relates to driving. Right? Like just going, where do you see the light? Over here? All right, get this person a license. It's like, I'm sorry.
In this vehicle.
Did you test that with animals? Did you test that with children playing in the street? Like, why? Do you see light? Yes. All right, you're fine by us. Like, no, there's so many other things you should be testing for. And I'm sure someone's listening to this being like, Ryan, you're an idiot. Here's why they do it with light. If you can see light, you can see everything. But I'd like to just have it stated also for the record that I believe there's a better test for this.
As a bad driver, I can tell you there definitely is a better way because I have a license and I should not.
Like, I feel like they should do a light on one side and then children playing on the other side, and you've got it. Right? Because now what's going to happen is you get in a situation where there's children and a light and you have to work quick to identify one object without even thinking. Yeah.
It's like, remember in Men in Black when he's doing the testing to see if he can be in a like, this is so deep in the archives, but there's a part where he's testing to see if he can be one of the Men in Black, and they do it like a testing facilities with like Navy SEALs and like all these like it's Will Smith. He's with all these like actual CIA, whatever. And they do a shooting test where the lights go out and they bring the lights up and he shot like truly everyone but the alien. And then he goes and explains like, that little kid looks suspicious. It's definitely an alien, and goes through that. I think that should be the driving test.
I totally agree. Absolutely agree. Because I think the lights just don't really do it. And anytime I think, well, maybe this is everybody. Anytime there's something that resembles a test, it's also just so much stress. I don't need to wear glasses for driving. Every time I'm like at the limit, they're like, whoa, you just got in. Like, no glasses. Yeah. But every time, like you, I feel like it's going to be the time where they're like, oh, and now you got to wear glasses. And that's somehow a failure in life. That is just.
Yes.
What? No, let me try again. I'll pass. I promise.
And it's, what's it called when the imposter syndrome is so much that like my imposter syndrome extends to my eyesight. Like, we're going to find out.
My driver's license designation. Oh my gosh. It's one extra letter or like a check mark on your driver's license. And you're like, not today. No, please, not today.
And it's not even like, I tell everybody this thing about me. Like, I'm like, yeah, I actually don't see out of that eye. Like, it's not, but I go to the DMV and I'm like, nobody can know.
Nobody can know.
Secret.
Not a single soul.
Anytime, I will not play two truths and a lie here.
Yeah, anytime there's a test, the amount of stress that goes with it. Right now, we are applying for Noah to go to an international school out here. And they're like, yeah, here's the application package. Just take this home, fill it out. And then you're actually going to come in and we're going to do just an interview with you. And then we'll do an interview with Noah. And I'm like, okay, what's the interview for? They're like, to come to the school. I'm like, is there a pass fail? They're like, well, not exactly a pass or a fail, but we want to make sure that we understand who's applying and who's going to be joining. So you're telling me it's a pass fail. You're telling me that I can either pass or fail this interview.
Did I get the job?
Did I get the job? Can I still have my driver's license? And so we've been practicing for this interview. And
Ryan,
I open up. No. I swear. I've now incorporated part of the interview. So I've talked about this before, but Noah loves stories while we eat dinner. Every night we're telling stories and she joins in the stories. And so I've now incorporated some of the interview questions into the story, but disguised it as Noah going to her first day of school, and the teacher just happens to want to know some information about her as the new student in the class. So we're like working it in. But anyways, I open up the application package, I guess on Friday. So a few days ago, I opened up the application package to just fill it out casually and send it away. And the first question was like, please tell us why you've decided to send your child to this school. And I'm like, So I'm like, I know why I, Ryan Porter, want to send my child to the school, but I'm not sure that's the right answer. So give me a second. I open up their webpage, I open up their website. No. I highlight their entire mission, about us page, and it was a long page. I'm talking 5 scrolls. So I copy the entire thing. I paste it into ChatGPT. And I'm like, here's why I want to send my child to the school. Here's the school's mission statement and vision statement and all the things that they believe. Please connect why I want to do this with what they do at their school, and make it short so that I can hand write it, because that's the only way you can submit the app. You have to hand write.
Pen and paper?
Yes, pen and paper. That's what I mean by hand write. Pen and paper. And so I got ChatGPT to do the thing. And Seiko's like, why are you looking at your phone so much? I'm like, I've got some help from ChatGPT. She's like, Ryan, kind of like, what if they find out? Now it's a whole other layer. Now I'm handing this in because I didn't feel confident enough in my own answer. And now I'm scared that they're going to find out this is ChatGPT. They're going to take a photo of it, run it through their own AI analysis and be like, this guy used ChatGPT. He's out.
His daughter cannot go to the school.
Never.
I feel like interviews and this type of thing really just lights up a part of our brains that I talk a lot about. My husband doesn't understand the concept of when I say I'm tired of being on, or I don't want to go to that thing because I don't want to be on, because he's not on or off. He just is. And so when an interview or something comes into play, I'm the honest that I'll ever be. And I don't mean honest, HONEST. I mean ONNEST. I could not be more on. And it's truly exhausting to feel like you have to be that level of on in these. So you say interview, and I'm already okay, what would I say in this interview? How would I just be so charming? How, the little jokes that I would throw in, I would be so on, and then I would have to sleep for 3 days after.
Going there, thinking about it the entire time, reading the cue cards that you have tucked away in your pocket in the parking lot before you go in, during it, and then after analyzing every single thing, being like, oh, I should have done that. Oh, I should have said this, which, by the way, is what I do every time I'm editing an episode. I'm like, oh, why did I say that? It's right there in front of me. Why did I not say that? I could have said it. Wait, should I get the microphone and just say it anyway and edit it into the episode? Jacqueline won't even know, but then her reaction won't be there. Can I change my voice to sound like Jacqueline's cackle? Let me see if I can do those things.
Probably.
Together. Somewhat related, but not related at all. A few years ago, I brought a buddy of mine from Canada to Japan, and we were going to do this whole tour. We're going to go to all these different cities, all these different places, just check off every Japan thing. And to prepare, he sneakily, quietly, secretly, how about let's just go with the most obvious. He secretly wrote out these cue cards with these phrases that he wanted to remember. Right? Very basic things. Thank you, please, excuse me, where is, whatever. But he also wrote down this phrase or these phrases that you would use to meet somebody for the first time, especially if it's someone's parents or something like that. Because he was coming to Seiko's house to meet Seiko's family one day because we were staying in a hotel, or he was staying in a hotel near their house. So the entire flight over, he's beside me. I see him. He didn't even watch a single video. He's watching these cue cards nonstop, especially the one to introduce himself to Seiko's dad, because I guess he's just assumed everything he's seen about older Japanese generations is completely true. So he's preparing. I see him I'm like, okay. Look, you can relax. I don't think he's just so dialed in to this thing to get it right. And to the point where there's sweaty thumb marks on the corners of the cue cards. I'm not exaggerating. And so we arrive, and because of the way that things unfolded on the way there, we arrived a day later than we should have. One of our flights was canceled, and we got bumped to another flight, which meant another day. We had to stay in Vancouver overnight. And anyway, so he thought he was going to have a day to prepare to meet Seiko's family, but now we're arriving at the airport. We're going straight to the house for dinner with Seiko's family. And so he's walking up to the house with the cue card out, reading, And I'm like, okay, buddy, it's time to put that away and relax. So he puts it in his back pocket and he thinks he's just going to fire from the hip as soon as he goes in the house. So we go in the house, Seiko's dad comes out and he's practiced something in English. So he's like, oh, nice to meet you, right? So he's got a couple of English phrases that he throws out. And my buddy was like, and he didn't get a chance to say it. He was like, and he didn't get a chance. So we go into the house. This story is way longer than it should be right now. But we go into the house, sit down for dinner, and I see him just sweating it out, waiting to say it. And then you get to a point in a conversation where it's really awkward to now introduce yourself using the phrases that you would use the very first time. So he excuses himself to the restroom. He goes in there and he reads the cue card at the bathroom to like memorize it one last time. He comes out and he gets like the first syllable of it out. And now it's the most awkward time to put this into a conversation. He gets like the first syllable out and Seiko's dad completes everything for him in Japanese. So he didn't even get to say it. He was like, dozo, and Seiko's dad is like, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, yeah, that. And he was like, okay. And then we just continued on with the dinner. And the whole point of this is we sweat over this stuff, literally sweat. I know we use the word literally 7 million times in this podcast or in every single episode. And we literally never use it right, but we literally sweat these things and it just doesn't matter.
I know it matters. Like, I think about how often, like, I have gone top to bottom, thought like an entire interaction through for like 4 days after to realize that the person that I had the interaction with, like, truly does not care and fundamentally has not remembered anything about me since then. But like, the pressure's on me. Like, I need to just nail every interaction in my life. And the problem with that is, like your friend, if it doesn't go according to script, then I'm screwed. Like, what am I supposed to do if it doesn't go according to the script in my head? And that's when I end up looking like the biggest idiot of all time.
You're supposed to, like I said, you're supposed to worry about it all the way up to the event and then stress about it after it's been done.
I remember I was doing pictures once for Addie. It was here when kids go to dances, there's always like a photo shoot before they go to the dance to like see them in all their clothes or whatever. Utah dances.
To see them in all their clothes? I'm sorry. What's the other option there? To see them with their clothes on? What kind of dances? What kind of footloose county do you live in?
Truly the footloose county. So we were doing this photo shoot and I was doing the pictures and then one of the other moms came along with us just to see the pictures and stuff. And it's like a little event when you're like following the kids around. And there's usually like a group of like 8 to 10 kids that you're with. Anyway, I was trying to make small talk with this woman. I had never met her before and I like just met her daughter and we're taking the pictures and she's like, they look so cute. I can't believe they've gotten so old. I'm like, I know. Seeing them like this, I feel like I'm 50 years old. She was like, I just turned 51 last week. And I was like, okay. And there's no recovery from that. So I just didn't say anything and let it like fester. And then for 4 days afterwards, I was like, I can never see this woman again. And then afterwards, I should have been like, but you don't look a day over 40. But I couldn't think that fast.
And I'm sure you thought about that on the drive home, right? You're like, that's what I should have. Can I drive back? Is it too weird if I say it now? Where's my cue cards?
I see her like drive next to me. I'm like, roll down your window. She's like, what? Like, roll down your window. Like, you don't look a day over 40.
You don't look it at all. And I wonder if it's the same for you, but I'm willing to bet, if I had to, that I could ask you about times in your life, not in the last 3 years where that's happened, but in the last 40 years where that's happened. And I'm sure you could be like, when I was 8 years old on the back steps of the portable at Southwood Park, I said blah, 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 blah. And when I was 9 years old at blah, 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 I did da, 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 da. Because I can remember doing it when I was in elementary school, literally being like making fun of a name and then finding out that it's the girl that I like's parents' name. And then like flipped into another one and that's her dad's name. And I literally just made fun of her mom's name and her dad's name. But I remember in my brain, I don't know where else you would remember something, but
it's up here.
I remember it in my brain, for those of you who don't know where you store memories, like it was yesterday. And my brain won't let it go. They're like, do you remember that, you idiot, that time you made fun of the name Sandy and it was her mother's name? There's
a reason I used to always, like if someone asked me if I ever went by Jackie, I used to be like, oh no, disgusting. And I had to learn to stop doing that because every single time without fail, someone would be like, my aunt's name is Jackie. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah, that's it. We stretched 30 minutes of DMV license interviews and calling a woman old, basically. That's what we just spent 30 minutes on. That's why people download this podcast.
That's why they're tuning in. I have a question. It has a preamble. So
I
my
like
son
these kinds of
Andrew-
questions.
I'm like looking at the time. I'm like, oh, there's no time. No, I don't care. We'll figure it out. So the preamble is Andrew, my son, is 15. He went on his first date on
Oh,
Saturday. And so in true Andrew style, he didn't tell me any of this was happening until like 3 days before. And he was like, oh, by the way, I asked a girl to homecoming. And that's a dance
and
here.
that's a big deal, right?
That's a big deal. Homecoming and prom are the two big deal dances. The homecoming's at the start and prom's at the end. So homecoming is a big deal. 3 days before, he's like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, I asked a girl to homecoming. I'm like, we don't have it. Like, you have to have the suit. You got to have you got to order flowers. You got to line up a photographer because we have to do a photo shoot. We have to buy the tickets. Do you
though? Do you really have to do any of that stuff?
And you also hear they also do like, it's called a day date, where beforehand they go do something fun together, whatever. So I have to go into like planning mode. We do all this stuff. Like I literally like borrow a suit from a friend whose son is like 2 years older than Andrew. I buy the tickets. I order the flowers, which I then forgot to pick up, and they are now still at the florist. And then I had to go and make my own flowers. Then I
make your own flowers.
Like I went to the store and bought like floral wire and like made a corsage and a boutonniere. And I'm not even kidding. Like
Stop.
I was out of control. I drove him around everywhere. I took him up to his day date with this girl, whatever. And after the dance is over, I go down to pick him up. And first of all, she didn't get picked up with him. Her mom was coming to get her. And I was like, like that doesn't seem great. And he gets in the car and like, he literally gets in the car. He wears glasses sometimes. He takes off his glasses. He like rips off like the hoodie he was wearing over top of, and I'm like, what? I was like, how'd it go? He was like, that was the worst experience of my life. And I was like, what? Like, what the heck? We went through all that preparation. He was like, all she did was hang out with her friends and make me take pictures with her and then make me hold her purse. And he was like furious that happened. And like, we were all like, our whole family's just dying because like, he's like, I never want to date again. That was horrible. So I wanted to see if you remembered your first date. And I do. And it actually involves you were there.
Sorry.
Do you remember
do you remember my first date? Sorry. You said, do you remember your first date? I do. And you were there. I'm like, I hope so. It was my date.
No, I remember my first date, and you made a special appearance on my first date. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. I did not know that.
Okay,
sure.
You think and I'll go because I obviously have a good story queued up for this.
I prepared days in advance.
Because I was thinking about this when Andrew was talking about his first date. We weren't allowed to date till we were 16 in our house, right? And on my 16th birthday, my friends threw me a surprise party. And at that party, a boy asked me out on a date. And everybody told me he's going to ask you out on a date. And I was like,
they all knew? They all knew.
They all knew. And my best friend at the time wanted to also go on a date with his best friend. So she was like, he's going to ask you, and I'm really going to need you to say yes, because her mom wouldn't let her go unless it was a double date.
I'm sorry, which Babysitters Club book is this in?
She's like, I know you don't want to go on a date with this guy, but like, I'm really going to need you to say yes. And I was like, please, no. And she's just like, just go. So we're at this big sweet 16 birthday party. He asks me to dance, and he's like, I wanted to ask you out on a date. And I sweating profusely because that's our family on our family crest is just a sweaty back.
It's just sweat drops. One of the quarters is just sweat.
So I said yes because I'd been pressured to do so. And we went out on this date, and my best friend was with her date and I was with my date. And I was so uncomfortable that I just decided not to say anything to him the whole time. Like I just didn't speak a word to him. I didn't look at him. His brother drove us, because none of us had driver's licenses yet. He drove us to the bowling alley because we were supposed to go to bowling alley and go out to eat.
Wait, like, which bowling alley?
It was Leisure Lanes, obviously.
Okay.
So we go, the one that was near the roller skating rink. Wheelies was it, yeah. Yeah. So we were supposed to go to bowling and then go to dinner. And I was just like, I'm just not going to speak a single word. I talked to my friend's date, didn't talk to, now I feel horrible about it. Like why was I
really
like this?
Though? This is
I feel pretty bad.
20 plus years ago. And you're like, I still, to this day.
In true form, I have thought about this nonstop since it happened. But after we were done bowling, they were like, okay, let's go out to eat. And I was like, I can't do it. Like, I physically couldn't make myself to do it. And again, I need to stress that you and I were not close as teenagers, but I went to a payphone and called home. You were the only one home. And I was like, Ryan, you have to come get me from the bowling alley. And you're like, what are you talking about? And I was like, please, like whatever has happened in the past, we need to set it aside. I need you to come get me.
Remember Aaron? Remember Aaron? We did that together, right? We brought the cat together, right? We're a team, right? We're a team.
We can. I know we can do this. And to your credit, you were like, okay, I'll be there in 10 minutes. And sure enough, in 10 minutes, I was like, I'll feel good. And I just left the three of them at the bowling alley and went home. And you were like, how was it? And I was like, not great. And we just went home and never talked about it again.
It's hilarious because I'm currently editing the Simpsons episode, where I tell the story about putting the plywood board on you and jumping on you, and how that's one of my friends' favorite memory. And so it's funny hearing that I was the go-to and I came through. Those two stories, night and day. I don't remember that at all.
I told that to Andrew as we were driving home last night, because he was like, that was a disaster. I hated every minute. And I was like, let me tell you a little story.
About my first date. I mean, your first date. But I was there. But wait.
You were there at my first date.
It reminds me of Dan when Dan was younger, because you say that Dan and Andrew are the same person, I believe. You said that.
Truly,
Dallin? Is it Dallin or Dan?
No, it's Daniel and Andrew. They speak the same. They even, like, you know how Daniel makes up his own catchphrases? Andrew
He's like, it's as hot as a rock out there. And you're like, what?
I'm like, what? Andrew does that all the time. And my other kids are like, oh, wait, Daniel.
Dan's partner Renee, she used to say that she was going to create a Twitter account for Dan, because he'll come home, he's like, I'm tired as a shoelace, and she'd be like, I'm sorry, that is not a phrase. And he would just make stuff up.
But he says it so confidently that you're like, oh, okay.
You must be very tired. But he said,
are tired.
Tired.
Please delete that.
Anyway, I remember when he was a teenager saying how he never wanted a girlfriend, because for him, a girlfriend is like being grounded all the time. It's just no fun. So I'm picturing Andrew being like, that sucked. It's just like being grounded the whole time. Also, to that family, the family of the girl who we went on a date with, who is surely listening to this, I'm sure it was fine. So thinking about, I don't know, honestly, what my first date was, because there were things that maybe other people considered as dates with me, where I wasn't like, you do that, right? Like, this is totally a date, right? Like, I'm sorry, we're just walking your dog.
She touched her hand on the Gravitron.
Oh, I totally, I thought this was a date. So yes, absolutely, we were not allowed, quote unquote, to date until we were 16. And because that was a rule, I was completely embarrassed about it. So I never told people, like, I'm sorry, I cannot date until I am 16. If you want to wait until I'm 16, you can ask me out at my birthday party. Like, I never wanted that. But this is actually hilarious, given some of the stuff we've been talking about up to this point, about remembering things that to this day will make you sweat, even though it happened however many years ago. When I was in grade 8. So short answer, no, I don't remember my first date, because I don't know. Like, I don't know, again, which date. I'm guessing I went on like a mini golf adventure with someone that was like the first formal date. But
remember the glow in the dark? It
might have been that. It might have been that one by the AMC theater, or the outdoor one with the plane.
Stop.
Whereas the plane like crashed into that, not crashed in, but it was staged to make it look like a Cessna had crashed into the mini golf.
Which, kind of course. Violent, but whatever. It's still there, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm sure there's a condo there now. But grade 8, again, we cannot date until we are 16. So this is 2 years before I can officially date. There was this girl, and I was just thinking about this the other day, because someone said something about Alanis Morissette, and that will come back in a second. Okay. So, yeah. So this girl in grade 8 asked me to grade 8 graduation. She was like, Ryan, and you could just imagine what it's like as a grade 8 girl getting the courage. As a grade 8, anybody, like, screw that.
Truly.
As a grade 8 student, imagine what that takes to put yourself out there and be like, I was wondering if you would like to accompany me to grade 8 graduation dance. You know what I mean? Like, it takes quite a bit of courage. So this girl came up to me and she was like, I was wondering if you would like to go to grad with me. And I was like, no. Like, I was like, let me think about that. Like, let me say, I was like, no, I can't do that. And she was like, oh, face completely red. I lacked all tact. And I think I was in front of other people too, which made it even worse.
No.
I was like, no, I can't do that. And she ran away. She cried. I hate Ryan. Ryan's a jerk, blah, blah, blah. All of her girlfriends then hated me, right? Because I'd been a jerk to her. And then so my tactic for trying to soften the blow was to make jokes about it publicly in front of everybody. So that I was like, no, like we're all cool with it, right? I'm going to make jokes about it. So anyway, this will tie up a few of the themes of this podcast nicely in a bow, this story. Grade 8 graduation comes along and, you know, they play music and you can dance with each other, and they play lots of slow songs.
Casey and JoJo was on.
Casey and JoJo, Celine Dion, right? You go and ask someone to dance and you dance with the person. And anyway, I felt really bad. I felt a little bit bad about saying no to her and making jokes about it. So I decided, like, look, I'm going to make this up to her by giving her a dance. I'm going to gift her the opportunity to have a dance with me. And I decided in my brain already, like, whatever, I'm just going to do it. The next slow song, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do this. So I'm so focused on this. I hear some slow music start like coming in and I'm like, oh, this is it. Like, this is totally the song. And so I walk over to her and I'm like, hey, would you like to dance? And I'm not paying attention to what's happening with the music behind me because I'm so focused on passing the test or so focused on like me and my situation. And it was Ironic by Alanis Morissette. And you know, the beginning starts off a little slow, but it's like rain on your wedding day. Like, it's not a slow dance song, but I had fully committed. And so by the time I got there and asked her, it was right before it like kicked into like the part that I so beautifully just performed for you all.
Beautiful.
And she's
like, Morissette, is that you?
I was like, hey, would you like to dance? And she like stood up and she's like, to this song? And then it kicked in. It's like, rain. And I'm like, yeah, like this. And I started like headbanging and like just like trying to play it up as this was part of my thing the entire time. And of course, add this to the backstory of I have said no to her, right? I've said no to her as her date. I have made fun of it in front of other people. And now I'm faking asking her to dance. That's what it was like. I was like, headbanging. She's like, you're a jerk, Ryan. And I just walk away to my friends and I have never seen her since. I swear to you. She ended up going to a different high school. But I swear to you. And to this day, I don't feel embarrassed for like, I feel so embarrassed that I asked her to dance for that song. Like, I'm not like, man, I feel really bad that I did this to her. Like, I feel bad that I asked her to dance. For me, because it was so embarrassing for me to ask her. And then I just headbanged and was like, yeah, like this. This is what we do. And all our friends are like, Ryan is such a jerk. And they ran away. I think they didn't even come back to grade 8 grad. It was like the last 3 songs. But anyway.
My favorite thing that Andrew said about his entire experience, he was like, every 10 minutes she would go to fix her makeup. And he was like, dude, what do you think happened in the last 10 minutes? Okay, Andrew, be cool, man. I feel like I am going to exploit more of Andrew's dating experiences throughout the podcast.
I like this. Like, I'm sure he does too.
Because he's going to love this. And I feel like it's going to be funny. Like, I think it's going to be good ones.
All right. So this is going to be a new segment of the podcast. So Andrew's Adventures.
Andrew's dating adventures. A 15-year-old in Utah.
Wait, before we go on, I don't know if this is actually for the podcast or just for me and you. Do you have a favorite episode up until this point? I'm obviously 1 or 2 episodes ahead, depending on what I'm doing for editing. We have just released the Menendez Brothers episode. So we are 9 episodes in terms of the episodes that are released. Again, we have a handful of episodes already in the queue before this one goes out. But do you have a favorite episode where 1, it either sparked a bunch of nostalgia for you, or 2, you thought, hey, like we've really found balance in that episode between our stories and delivering some facts that everybody will find fascinating?
So even though the pets episode was like loosely, and I mean loosely, light as a feather, tethered to Homeward Bound, we could not have been like less engaged with that as a topic. I loved the conversation about it because I think our pets adventures were truly hilarious. Like, I laughed out loud listening to that one. But I was so worried when the Menendez Brothers came out. I was like, oh boy, like I was scared to listen to it. And I was like, wait, like I think we did it. And I've gotten good feedback on that one. Like, people want, first of all, I went to go to my office the other day and we were about to go to lunch and we were with all the people that work with us. So it was a bigger group. And the guys that we work with started talking about the podcast. And I was like, guys, I don't want to talk about it. Like, please never mention it in real life to me because I will. I'm so uncomfortable. But they're like, yeah, we listen. And then they're like, yeah, we've been doing it on like a Spotify jam so that we can all listen at the same time. And I was like sweating, drenched in sweat. And I was like, please no. But then we were at lunch, then they started talking about the Menendez brothers. And I was like, well, now I feel like as the resident expert,
subject expert,
I do need to interject here. So I guess that's been fun. It's definitely been a conversation starter. Whether or not I want that conversation to happen is a different story, but the conversations are happening. I can say that.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. I actually was going to say the same thing for the Menendez Brothers episode as a representation of our regular conversation, where it's like something serious, can't finish that. Let's do a whole bunch of non-serious stuff. Okay, let's cap off the serious thing and then pretend that conversation didn't happen. I felt was a pretty good representation of a conversation that we would have anyway. And I think when we first started out with this podcast, we had said like, we have these conversations that weirdly enough would almost flow like this anyway. And recording those and putting those out, maybe, again, for family members, mainly to catch up or to hear what we're talking about. But I would say that the Menendez Brothers episode, I'd forgotten about it because it had been weeks since we did the episode and then when I actually went in to edit it, and even editing, I was like, oh, but then listening to the whole thing from start to finish, I was like, actually, it wasn't that bad. And I think we did a good job. Let me finish that. I think we did a good job of having a conversation like we would normally have about something that was maybe not the most upbeat, uplifting subject matter.
That's the framework we're working with here. We're not trying, I'm really not trying to be a true crime podcast here, but like when we do hear these things, like it would not be uncommon for me to like call you and be like, oh my gosh, did you see this thing? And then have a conversation about it. So this is truly just a conversation that we would normally have. This is not for the podcast. We're not putting anything on here. And I'm glad you said that because you're in luck, because I am ready to talk about another two brothers who also got in trouble with the law. And I don't know if you know about them or not.
I am
Are we ready?
Slightly nervous because last time you shared a story that I didn't know about, again, that one we said we don't know if we're actually going to publish. So,
yeah. But
the last time you brought up a subject that I was completely foreign to and couldn't connect any of the dots, it was a tightrope academy. I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
I don't know what a tightrope academy is.
When you go to an academy.
Tightrope. Welcome to our tightrope academy.
I think I learned my lesson as far as like subject matter and what interesting, if we are talking about people who got in trouble with the law, what kind of laws we are comfortable talking about breaking. Murdering parents, fine.
Totally
That's
okay.
Fine. but some other ones I just felt like, yeah, Tightrope Academy, indeed. Well, today I need to talk to you about John and Clarence Anglin. Have you ever heard of John and Clarence Anglin?
Sorry, are you saying England with an English accent? Anglin?
That's how I say England. Anglin. Anglin. Anglin.
Anglin. Anglin. Anglin.
Yes. Yeah.
Now that we're on the spelling bee. Anglin, can you use that in a sentence, please?
I don't know who the Anglin
country of origin.
I think America or England.
Okay, or Anglin. I mean, sorry, I can't. Okay, so what were the names?
John and Clarence.
John and Clarence Anglin. I have no idea who they are. They sound like they might have a school named after them, but but
are you thinking of Lord Elgin?
Elgin. That's who they're close, right? They're close. Lord Elgin, Lord Anglin.
And I can almost guarantee you there is no school named after these two.
And
but
if so, I'm
good. A little background.
Well, yeah, you said they got in trouble with the law, so let me.
They did get in trouble with the law a long time ago. John was born in 1930 and Clarence in 1931. They come from a big family. I believe there was 11 kids altogether. I think there was 12, one passed in childhood. They grew up in Florida, and they would actually.
I like this already.
Florida man in 1930. They kind of moved around a lot because their dad was kind of like just a general laborer. So in the summer, he would go to Florida and pick like tomatoes, and then in other parts of the year, they'd go to Michigan and they'd pick cherries, and they kind of just bounced around wherever the work was. They were, what I can tell, a pretty poor family. But the boys were just kind of into everything. One thing I read about them was that they were kind of just like MacGyvers. Like they could make anything into anything else. They were like constantly building stuff. They were really active. Their sister actually said when they were in Michigan, there'd be like ice on Lake Superior and they would break it through it and go swimming in the winter. Like they were just really, is ragamuffin the right word to say? They were just little scallywags.
Scallywags. I think it just got more complicated by using scallywags.
Sorry, apologies to the scallywag community. So yeah, they were just kind of like into everything. And when they stopped going to school after third grade, so they only had a third grade education, and they start doing light burglary, I would say. They start going into gas stations and stealing stuff. And as they get older, that begins to graduate into bank robberies. And that's how they're making their money. They have another brother named Alfred.
Sorry. Can you go back and just walk me through the timeline to, not the timeline, but what they started with and that led to bank robberies? I just want to make sure I get that.
Gas station candy stealing, taking a popsicle from Becker's, straight into bank robbery. That's the natural next step. Like, what else are you going to do? So they begin robbing banks. They have another brother named Alfred who starts robbing banks with them. So there's the three Anglin brothers now are out there, and they're actually pretty good at it as far as robbing banks go. But they are caught in 1958.
So not that good.
They're not good enough not to get caught, but they actually were robbing the bank with a toy gun. And because the people didn't realize it was a toy gun, they all get 35-year sentences for this bank robbery, all three brothers.
Sorry, can we go back to that? Because people didn't realize it was a toy gun, they got 30 plus years. How are they related? How are those two things related?
They thought it was an armed robbery. They were put away for armed robbery, and it was a toy gun. It wasn't real.
Would that have made a difference?
I feel like it would have if they, like, their sister. I listened to an interview with their own sister. She was like, that was the deciding factor, the fact that nobody realized that it was a toy gun, so everybody thought it was a real armed robbery.
It's just a prank, bro. It's a prank. It is just a prank. Come on, this is a prank.
So anyway, they're all put away for 35 years at different facilities, but especially Clarence and John, they break out of almost every jail they're put in.
I like these guys.
They're wild, truly wild. This is a wild story. So after they break out of, like, I think it was 3 or 4, they are both sent to Alcatraz in 1960. So they're sent to Alcatraz, which is said to be inescapable prison. That's the whole thing about Alcatraz. It is the rock. There's no way to escape from it. When they get there, they're being housed separately, and they start talking to a man named Frank Morris. And Frank Morris, from what I read, was actually like a genius level. I don't know why he was in prison, but they start talking and they start planning an escape. And Frank Morris some people are saying like Frank Morris is kind of the brains of the operation, and then John and Clarence were the brawn because they were really good at MacGyvering things, right? Like that's what their strength was. So first, Frank tells them, you need to ask for a change in cell, and we all need to be in cells underneath this air vent. So they all request a change in cell. They all get put under this air vent. On June 12th, 1962, they do their nightly bed check and everything looks good. Looks like all three men are in their beds, and then the guards realize that they're not moving, and so they're calling to them, whatever. Finally, they come in and realize that they are paper mache heads, that all three of them have made paper mache heads, and they're gone. And they're like, how could this happen? Like, truly, they have no idea. Alcatraz is supposed to be like impenetrable, and they find another man who says he was supposed to be with them on the escape. And he's like, I'll, again, like I would, sing like a canary about this.
What do you want to know?
I don't know. So he kind of like leads them around the prison, and he's able to show them all the steps that they went through. First, the thing they do is they find a part of a saw, and John is able to MacGyver an engine from a vacuum cleaner, and they turn it into a handmade drill. Basically, the end of the saw then has an engine attached to it, and they start drilling out around this air vent. Then they make a false air vent out of paper mache that they get a hold of.
Did nobody during prison craft time?
Arts and crafts.
Was nobody asking questions like, why are these guys making to scale air vent? Like, they're just making giant rectangles. Like, what's that? They're like, we're just making air vents over here. We really like air vents. Like, keep on.
John and Clarence, these two.
Why are you guys making those to scale paper mache? Why do you have the paper mache around your face right now? Like you put it around the balloon before you pop it off. Like they're making a mummy mask of their face. No one asked any questions during prison arts and crafts time.
As someone who has never successfully been able to make anything out of paper mache, I can only
applaud.
Be impressed by this. So one of the crazy things was, like, this is all a crazy story, but one of the brothers applies to be the prison hairdresser. I believe it's Clarence. Applies to be the prison hairdresser. And as he's cutting hair, he folds the cuffs of his shirt. And as he's cutting hair, lifts his hands up and collects the hair that he's cutting into the shirt, and they use that on the paper mache heads. So they have real hair. Then they tell the prison guards.
Again, I want to make sure, like during arts and crafts prison arts and crafts time, no one was like, excuse, where did you get that hair that you are now putting on the heads of your lifelike paper mache dolls?
You know, people are lonely in prison. I think you don't ask questions. But one thing they said was that they missed their girlfriends. So they asked their guards, can you give us some paint so you can paint portraits of our girlfriends? And they're like, okay, like, and that's what they used to paint the heads, the flesh-colored heads that look like humans. I will post the pictures to the show notes. The paper mache heads are crazy. And they also painted, what's crazy is John was a really good artist. He did paint their girlfriends, and they were nice pictures. he get you a man who can do both is what I'm saying.
It's those, have you seen the TikTok videos right now? Where it's like the couple painting night, like they have a glass of wine, they're painting each other and they turn it around. He would have nailed that.
She would have been so impressed.
He turns it around, it's a picture and a paper mache.
It's like, I had time to do both.
With her hair, she's now bald. She's like, how did you? I did. He's like, I needed it.
Clarence is standing there with scissors. So another thing they did is they said on Alcatraz, they wouldn't monitor how many rain jackets the guys used when they would go outside. And so every time they went outside,
San Francisco rains a lot.
It rains a lot. And every time they'd be like, can I get a rain jacket? Then they would use those rain jackets. They sewed a raft out of the rain jackets. So when they got through the wall, when they got through the air vent, they found an unused utility room and turned it into a workshop where they were doing this every night. Every night they would take off their grates, they'd go through and start working on their workshop. They'd work on their paper mache, they'd work on their watercolors, apparently. They'd work on sewing this
a little bit of that.
They were very talented people. And someone had like an accordion-like instrument, and they stole it and used it to inflate the raft. Like, this is the level that these guys are operating at.
Wow.
So by the time of their escape, they have these heads. They've made tunnels through Alcatraz. They have life preservers that they've sewed, and they have this raft that they've preserved. And so they escaped by climbing all this through the roof and sliding down the smokestack of the bakery on Alcatraz out to the water. They are never seen again.
No.
Ever. So, of course, the FBI is called in. Huge manhunt goes on. They do a manhunt for, I believe it's 15 years. The FBI has an investigation ongoing, and they finally come to the conclusion that they drowned off the coast of Alcatraz, and that's why they can't find them. And the FBI is like, we are officially closing the case. I mean, it looks, and they've been saying from the start, they probably just drowned. And the FBI definitely wants everybody to believe that they drowned, because that's the whole part about Alcatraz.
Escape Alcatraz.
You can't, and so it looks really bad if these three men were able to escape. So they hand the case over to the U.S. Marshals, who, that's their job. The U.S. Marshals go after fugitives. And the person that they hand it to is a man named Mike Dyke. Perfect name. Love it.
Shout out to the parents. Shout out to the parents that are like, Mr. and Mrs. Dyke, who are like, should we name?
Mike?
Let's go with Mike.
Mike Dyke.
Michael? We're going with Mike.
I mean,
middle name Ike. Middle name Ike. We're going to go with Mike Ike Dyke.
So Mike Dyke is the person who takes over the case. I watched an interview with Mike Dyke, and they were like, how long will you search for these people? Because it is an active, ongoing investigation to this day. He said the U.S. Marshals will search for a person until they turn 99. After they turn 99, they are considered scot-free. So what I'm saying, if you want to commit a robbery or any other felon, all you got to do is escape and turn 99, and you're done. So
of those three things, right? Of those three things, first of all, committing a robbery, escaping a prison, and turning 99. Statistically speaking, turning 99 is probably the hardest of those three. Like, if we're like, you're like, all right, I'm here, 99.
So Mike Dyke's out there to this day still looking for them. Some really interesting things happen to the Anglin family during this time. First of all, Alfred, who is in a different prison, is electrocuted on a fence and dies. That's what the prison tells them anyway. Like, sorry, Alfred has passed away. He was trying to escape.
Release the tapes.
Actually, I've seen Jurassic Park. I know what electric fences are like.
Yeah, you get shot back and someone catches you and your hair gets messy.
And then you just wrap little bandages around your head. And then you get Jell-O. So the Anglin family, one thing that their sister said, I'll put in the show notes where I'm getting all of this information from. Some of it's actually from the FBI page, where there's still a page dedicated to these men. But their sister said, first of all, the FBI is at every family event afterwards, like stalking every birthday party, every Mother's Day, there's an FBI car out front. She said she'd just be out gardening, an FBI officer would stop by and be like, hey, have you heard from your brothers lately? And she'd be like, the sister, baller that she is, she was like, if I did, I wouldn't tell you. And then he would just like drive away. And I'm like, that's right, Marie. That's what you do.
Take note, Jacqueline. That's how you interact with law enforcement. No, like, would you like a cup of tea? Come in. I will tell you everything.
I'm sweating. So one
Will I lose my driver's license?
Again, does it say on my file that I can see out of both eyes? Every Mother's Day, there are flowers and cards sent to the house from an anonymous source. And
did you say anonymous source or anonymous horse?
Wouldn't it be great if it was a
monogamous horse? Wouldn't it be great if it was a monogamous horse?
He's a one lady horse that doesn't have a name. So it was a source.
Monogamous horse. She signs every card with a horseshoe print.
A cartoon. So they get these flowers and cards sent, and then their sister said even they got letters that were blank. And when they were kids, they devised a method when they were messing around that they would write letters to each other in milk, and because they realized the milk would dry and no one could see it. But if they held it over a lighter, you could read it. So they get this letter in the mail, and one of their brothers gets it. He's like, I know exactly what this is. And he takes it and reads it. He's the only person who reads it. According to the sister, he's the only person who reads it. He's like, I know where they are. They are safe. They said not to worry. Case closed. Like, we're not going to talk about it anymore. No,
I just got goosebumps. That is wild.
So another thing that was really interesting is when their mother dies, they said two really tall, strangely made up women appear at the funeral, and nobody knows who these women are. And the sister is like, those were my brothers. I know they were my brothers dressed up as women to be at the funeral. That is disputed. Some people say it was like also it could have been FBI agents, but I'm like, the FBI agents were always around. Why would they suddenly dress up as women to go to the funeral? I don't know. I thought that was an interesting part. I watched a documentary from it was about their nephews, who later got a picture of what they claim is the brothers on a farm in Brazil that a friend had taken and sent as proof that they were still alive and to not make their parents worry. Mike Dyke takes the picture in this documentary. Mike Dyke takes the picture and tries to do forensics on it and it looks like them, but he can't really say for sure whether or not it really is them. Actually, in 2013, so not long ago, a letter is sent to the San Francisco police, and it says it's from John Anglin. In the letter, he says he is 83 years old. He has cancer. Clarence has died, and that for a promise that he won't go to jail, he will tell them everything. He says, if you can promise me that I'll have cancer treatment and won't go to jail, I'll tell you everything that happened. But they never say anything. The San Francisco police doesn't do anything about it. The letter also says that John specifically wants them to announce it on television, that this is the deal they made. So it protects him. Who knows where that letter is? So to this day, until likely they have passed, right now he would be 94 years old. 94, my math. John would have been 94, so he's really only 5 years away from living.
You're almost there. You are almost there, John.
You could hold on. They assume Clarence is dead because of the letter, but it is still an open, ongoing, active investigation, and that is the story. This was the inspiration for the movie Escape from Alcatraz. And I also listened to a podcast called Criminal about it, and there's so much really... I went to Reddit just to see, Reddit has unexplained mysteries, unsolved mysteries, and stuff like that. And to see, what I thought about it, I was like, what do I think? I think 100% they made it off the island. I do not believe that they drowned. Later on, people were saying, well, they would have to steal a car once they got to the mainland, and there would be a record of a stolen car. There was a record of the stolen car that night, but the FBI hid it from public knowledge. So I truly believe they made it off. I don't know if they're still alive. Well, I don't know if any of them are still alive to this day. Their sister, Marie, who is also quite elderly, says she believes that they are alive and she would know if they were dead. But that's what, so I wanted to say, what do you think? What do you think happened?
Well, first of all, the most genius thing they did, and I don't know if this was planned, but sliding down the smokestack of a bakery was the most genius thing, because for decades, the police dogs led them to bakeries. For sure. We got it. I want that montage in the movie. The montage. I want the montage in the movie to just be these German shepherds hot on the trail. Just so, and then they bring it. Yeah, they bring to like, but these are just macarons. Why are you bringing me to this? This is just a freshly baked baguette.
And every time Mike Dyke just like is like, well, we're here.
Can I get a bagel with cream cheese? That's what I want it to be.
One of my favorite things, I was watching this documentary told from the point of view of these two nephews. They have the deepest South accents you've ever heard. And before they go to meet with Mike Dyke, they're very aware of Mike Dyke. They know that Mike Dyke is looking for their uncles, who they're like, this is unfair. He should have just let them go. They like come in so hot in the interviews. They're like, I'm never telling Mike Dyke anything. Mike Dyke, the worst person I've ever met. And then it shows them going to meet them. They're like, hi, Mike. Nice to see you again. And it's so funny to watch them.
A baguette?
I'm like, they also talk about Mike Dyke. I don't know anything about Mike Dyke other than his excellent name and what I saw on television.
His wisely chosen name.
And I'm like, he seems like a fairly nice person. So the two nephews coming in so hot for Mike Dyke was extremely funny to me. I couldn't get over it.
So I don't know what I think. I know what I want to think. I tend to root for the underdog. And in this case, the underdog are these three gentlemen who escaped Alcatraz, two of them happening to be brothers. So I hope that that's the story. Again, because I think in like movie, right? I think like in movie frames. And
well, here's the thing that I kept thinking. How could these people who are so good at literally making a homemade drill, making paper mache heads that look pretty good, like pretty convincing, like stealing hair, stealing paints, building their own workshop in the back of Alcatraz, you're going to tell me that they got out to the water and then just were like,
now what?
Up under the water?
No, they were training in Michigan, breaking the ice, training for this day. They were levels above the Marines.
They were good swimmers. They were used to swimming in cold water. One theory was that they caught a boat, because their sister said one of the things they used to like to do was catch a rope on the backside of a boat and just kind of like body surf. And so like she was like, hey, they knew how to body surf off the back of a boat. So like one of the theories is like a boat went by with a rope that they had arranged for and they just like caught it and like body surfed to safety, which the mental image.
What a random skill also. Right? Can you imagine that? Imagine telling people that that's a skill that you possess. Imagine that on a LinkedIn profile. And then you scroll down to see who's verified it. And it's their sister being like, yeah, I can totally vouch for these guys. They did this every summer.
I love the idea that like a useless skill from your childhood really comes in clutch one day. Like another thing that I use often for Two Truths and a Lie, I don't know why that's on my mind today, but was that I was on a competitive reading team. And
because you could read 2 pages at once.
Because I'm really good at reading, and like it was truly a competitive reading team. There was like 5 people on the team, and you went and like you had to read 100 books in a year, and then you would go compete against other team. It was like mathletes. You'd go compete against other teams. They'd be like questions about like who is Frodo's uncle in Lord of the Rings, and you'd buzz in and you'd go head to head like that. And I'm like, one day, I just want one day for my competitive reading skills as an adult to just like shine, and I can be like,
it's shining right now. Let me tell you right now in this moment, it is shining. It is out there for everybody to see. And what everybody sees is a very sad, lonely teenager pushing her glasses up her nose going, I can't wait for them to ask about Frodo's uncle. Guys, if they ask about Frodo's uncle, let me buzz in.
This is mine. I got it.
This is
Trust
shining.
me. That's why when you were to ask, you said the other day that you were asking ChatGPT to explain the plot of Lord of the Rings to you, and I was like,
it wasn't Lord of the Rings.
Why would
no,
you just ask me.
No, it wasn't Lord of the Rings. It's the Rings of Power. And that happened before Lord of the Rings, right? Because it's about the crafting of the rings. And there's so much that I didn't know.
Ryan, that's in Lord of the Rings. I know all that. I know how it was crafted. You think I don't know this? I competitively read Lord of the Rings.
Please don't ever say that sentence ever again. Please don't start a sentence with I competitively read. It doesn't matter what comes after that. Please, for the love of all of our listeners and me, please don't ever say that again.
You know how reading is fun and relaxing? Not for me. I'm reading competitively. I'm reading to win.
And what was the prize? The prize was probably more books.
Sadly, it was sweaters with two books on the back that had boxing gloves on them. No. Did you win? No.
No.
I think Lord Durham got us every time.
That is hilarious. How do you know? Because I just said it was hilarious.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Clear marker every time. Wow, that was a good one. I'm going to be Googling this after because, and you know, I always, learning about these things, I want to see the movie. I want to see the present day movie. I don't want to see the movie that was made in the 80s or even the 90s. I want to see the movie that was made in 2022 or beyond.
That I wrote.
That I wrote. But really, I want to see the movie. I 100% want to see that movie about those brothers. And then I want to see the people who make those movies or make that movie insert their own interpretation, their own wish, and like their own spin on it. And then I want to remember that like it's the true one.
And I want to see who's going to play Mike Dyke.
Also that.
Anyway, that's all I have for today.
It's weird to me. Well, I always say this. It's interesting. It's so interesting. Because I always try to round the episode out like it has to be rounded out. I'm like, let me bring this back. Let me just bring this all back.
Bring this back as a study about siblings.
Yes. The stories that we've shared about some of these siblings that get in trouble, I feel like they're always really close in age. Because these two brothers were only a year apart, right? The Menendez brothers. They were only a year apart. I can't remember if we talked about it, but back in the McDonald's episode with the two brothers who scammed McDonald's for millions, were they close in age? Like, I wonder if this is, I wonder if we're cracking the code.
Brothers.
Are we cracking it right now?
Do not have two sons close together in age. They will become criminals.
If you look at me and Dan, I think
it was on the cusp.
We definitely, brought it to the edge and over a few times, but yeah, and we're only 18 months apart. So I wonder if that's like a precursor, that's a prerequisite for committing crime. You have to be close in age. And again, I'm guessing it's a sliver of a percent. But hey, FBI, if you're listening, if you want to start profiling and add this to the way that you profile, close in age.
Close in age, and also had a lot of time just left alone as kids. Like their moms, like, just go outside and play. Sometimes I see like things
and access to tools,
and
access to tools and spray paint.
I was gonna say, like, I've seen things about like kids playing, and they're always like, "Imagine I'm a princess, or I'm lost in the forest," and I was like, we were not playing that. We were playing like, imagine we ran away from the circus. And the evil ringmaster is coming to get us, like,
with the FBI.
With the FBI, and we have to run and hide. And if anybody finds you, you're dead.
This gun has 4 bodies on it. Run.
And Mom's like, they're fine. They're fine out there. Let them play. This is how they play.
All right, that was fun.
I do have our Unhinged text message of the week, and I'm really excited because I discovered it 5 minutes before we started recording. I did this thing on my phone where it condenses my alerts to 4 times during the day, so I don't get
the daily recaps or whatever, part of iOS 18.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that I put Messenger on there, which is how we communicate, and I need to take it off. So I didn't see it until I was looking for the link for us to do this podcast, and I was like, oh my gosh, what are you talking about? And also, it's just like a lot. I was like, what's happening? Is there a problem?
Is Ryan okay?
The text, is Ryan okay? It's a long text. And I was like, oh, never mind. So you texted me I'll take a pause every time it's a new message because I also think that's really important. So
but wait. Before you read this, I feel like there's one piece of information that will help fill in some of this to like make it. So I obviously know what you're about to read because I sent it. And I'm not sending things just to be the unhinged text. But from the time I was like 14 to the time I was like 24, we played basketball at like our parents' church in the basketball court, or on the basketball court that they have inside the church, with the same group of friends for 10 years. And after I had moved away, my friends who are now in their 40s, like some of them still go there and play. So church basketball or church ball was like a regular thing. Yeah, it was just what we did growing up every Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on the year that it was. But anyways.
I would also like to say that my sweet 16th birthday party was also held at the basketball court at our parents' church.
When we turned 18, it was the same thing. The young guns.
Multi-purpose area.
Yeah. Yes. So anyways, now go ahead.
You texted. So I had the most hilarious dream last night starring Justin in caps lock. Justin is my husband, who I need to reiterate is the most mild person you've ever met in your life. Like he doesn't have emotions. He is singular emotion at all times. So I had the most hilarious dream last night starring Justin. We were playing church ball while mom was like preparing something in the kitchen of the Pickering church. And Justin was being the cockiest basketball player in history. Like every time he took a shot, he'd look away and say things like money and I don't miss, etc., etc. And he didn't miss. Luckily, I knew this in advance and chose the kid from Footloose High to be on my team. Again, my husband literally went to the school where Footloose was filmed. We smoked. Not cigarettes, I mean. We beat the other team easily. And then when it was done, we all piled into the green van with our entire family and drove off into the sunset. Oh, and Dallin was in a baby seat. That's true.
This is my actual dream. I swear to you. This is my actual dream. I swear this happened. And Justin would run away. He was doing like the Jordan shrug. Everyone knows what the Jordan shrug with his hands up like this, right? Like, oh, I don't know. It's just, I don't even know how to explain this. It was insane. It was insane. And it was still on the Pickering Church. They went through like a carpet basketball court. And then there was a rubber basketball court. And then there was a wood basketball court. It was on the rubber basketball court.
Excellent. Perfect. It was a little bouncier. I can see why he would be so good.
And Dallin, I swear to this also.
Was he grown up or was he a baby?
He was a baby. He was a baby with his like little curls. And he was there's pictures that we have him where he's wearing like suspenders. Maybe red suspenders, like a white dress shirt, red suspenders, and gray slacks. That's what he was wearing. Just expressionless. He was just kind of staring at me as the sliding door shut. And that's where the dream ended. Like I looked over at him and he was just sitting there. We made eye contact and the story was done.
Please have someone out there, please, if you're good at interpreting dreams, please send in the interpretation of this dream. One thing that happened, I do need to say about the story about that green van, is one day we were going to school. Again, Daniel and you and I went to the same high school during the same time, so we were driving together in the van. And Daniel, you were driving, Daniel was in the front seat, and I was getting into the back seat, and I put my hand up on the bar between the window and the back seat to like hoist myself in, and Daniel shut the front door on my hand and it clicked. And so it was all the way shut, and I couldn't, because I was like so shocked that it was happening, I couldn't vocalize that my hand was clicked into the door. And Daniel was like, "Get in, Jacqueline, what are you doing?" And I was just like I couldn't.
That was our episode about, well, lots of different things, but mainly about the escape from Alcatraz.
I'm glad you're putting the different topics that we're covering in the titles, because the original idea was just to say that the siblings we were covering, but it became abundantly clear that we are unable to stay on topic.
That's correct. Big shout out to all the people who are actually listening to the podcast.
Truly, I could not love you more.
All three of you.
I know, and it's always the same three people.
Just in Justin's office. They're the three people in Justin's office. Our family is fully checked out. This is just Justin's workers, who, by the way, are being paid by, this is a conflict of interest. They are being paid by Justin.
The best part, I'm like, "Justin, did you listen?" He was like, "No."
Well, the way you're going to be able to tell is if he comes home today and he does like the Jordan shrug, or whenever he listens to this, he does the Jordan shrug. He's like, money, I don't miss. Money. I can't miss. All right. We'll talk to you in a couple of days.
All right. See you then.
Bye.